Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to be sharing a project featuring the brand new Essentials by Ellen November 2017 release. Here's a look at that here. We're going to be focusing on this gold foiled paint stroke technique or dry brush technique. The other projects you can check out over at my blog, so be sure to head over there. And before we jump into the project, I want to walk you through this release. So here are the abstract paint strokes. This is a stamp set designed by Julie Ebersole. I love these paint strokes. They are perfect. They are a great foundation for items on a card to keep it really clean and simple. And next up, we have the Totally Random Sayings by Brandi. Now, these have some great handwritten kind of font messages here, or brush font. I love the way these two sets can combine. I don't know if they were actually made to coordinate together. They were designed by two different people, Brandi and Julie, but look how well these sentiments fit onto those paint strokes. I think it would be super easy to just stamp one of these paint strokes or maybe a few of them in some beautiful colors, layer one of these sentiments on top, maybe add a little sparkle, and you have some fast and easy but beautiful cards. Now, in the Leading Ladies series, we now have the Photo Lady, and I love all of the different types of cameras. There's like professional looking cameras, there's Instax cameras, and then there's the beloved iPhone, because we all know that's how most of us take our pictures anyway, right? Is our phones. And I love the sentiments that they've included and all of the little accessories here. Fun cards to be made with this stamp set. So let's get into today's project. As I mentioned before, I'm using the Essentials by Ellen Abstract Paint Strokes, and I have a piece of 80-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I am going to be just taping this down with some delicate surface painter's tape to my grid mat here. This is going to help me line up all those paint strokes, and I got really good at this because I had several trial and errors with this technique that I'm showing you today. So I'm going to show you some of them that didn't work and what I found worked the best. So in addition to taping it down on that right-hand side, I kind of marked the center with another piece of painter's tape on the left-hand side so that I could start from the center and work out with my paint strokes. So I'm going to be doing a kind of modified rainbow. It's not a true red and blue that I'm using, just kind of a muted back, more pastel or bright, vibrant colored rainbow. And I'm starting with the Hero Arts Butter Bar ink, and I'm stamping that right in the center of my panel there. And for this particular card, I just found that stamping it with a clear block was just as easy as trying to use my Misty, as long as I was kind of keeping everything lined up. Now, the second color I'm using here, you can see I cleaned my stamp really well with a baby wipe and then a microfiber cloth. And I'm inking up that same paint stroke again with some soft Cantaloupe ink from Hero Arts. Now, if you look right now, those stamps look like they're overlapping. And that's how I figured out how to line these up. They actually kind of, if you do it to where they just look like they're overlapping, they're not actually overlapping. And it gives me that perfect gap between them each time. So once again, I cleaned my stamp with a baby wipe and then a microfiber cloth, and now I'm stamping it in some cotton candy ink by Hero Arts. And do you see how I'm making all of the paint strokes different links across the front of the card? That's just to give it some variation. If you wanted to keep them all at the same level, you can. I just feel like this gives it a more realistic effect that I created these with like a dry brush effect. So my final color here at the top of my rainbow is going to be the Hero Arts Pale Tomato. And I'm going to continue to stamp these paint swooshes, strokes down the front of my card. For my green, I used the Hero Arts Lime Green, and then I used Hero Arts Tide Pool for my blue. And I finished off my rainbow with the Fawn Grape Soda. So you can see I'm repeating the same process every time. I'm lining those up to where they look like they might be overlapping when I look down through the stamp, but it's giving me that perfect gap and helping me to keep all of these equally spaced. Now, if you wanted to create a more bright, kind of primary colored rainbow, you could use a true red and you could use a more true blue instead of an aqua blue, and that would give you that more primary rainbow look. But I was going for kind of like this muted back, kind of they're not, I don't really know how to say it because they're not really pastels. They're still very bright and beautiful colors, but it's almost like you've added just a touch of white to each of them just to kind of tone them back a little bit. And I love this color combination. And I used it on several of my other cards that I created with this release as well. Now, once I have all of my paint strokes stamped across my card front, I am going to start experimenting with different ways to create this dry brushed gold foiled effect on my card front. The first technique I tried was a Zig two-way glue pen. And you can see here that I'm starting at the end or the brushed end of these paint strokes, and I'm kind of swiping my glue pen here and kind of lifting it. I'm really trying to create that dry brush effect by not having it solid and totally colored in. Now, I have used the Zig two-way glue pen in the past to create foiled effects, like if I want to color something in or I want something solid. And so this was the first kind of technique that I experimented with. I thought for sure I was going to be able to achieve the look that I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry, and I actually created kind of this brush stroke effect on a piece of plain Neenah Solar White cardstock as well. And I ended up using this to die cut my sentiment. But once these are dry, what I can do is take my champagne foil here from ThermoWeb, and I'm going to lay it over the top of my piece here. You see that? And I'm going to just press it down. Now this glue dries tacky, so that's why this is a good glue for a technique like this. You want to let it dry. It will dry clear and tacky, and then I can press my foil onto it. And I'm going to run it through my die cut machine with a cardstock shim. There's no die here. I'm just using the pressure of the die cut machine to really press that foil into the adhesive. And I thought this was going to be like genius on my part, so I got my iPhone out to record it for my friend Julie. And look, just watch. I was like, oh man, that was not the look I was going for. It was a little too solid. It wasn't kind of swooshy enough. So I decided that really wasn't the technique. So we're going to move on to a different technique. And what I did was I inked up the end of this paint stroke with some Versamark ink. And then I used a dry brush to kind of wipe away some of the ink on what will be the left-hand side of the stamp when I stamp it down onto my card front. So I'm just trying to create that really kind of splotchy dry brush effect. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat this all the way down my rainbow here. You can see I'm just swiping this off. And once I have all of my paint strokes stamped with this, what I thought would create a dry brush effect on these paint strokes, I'm going to take some Ranger Sticky embossing powder and I'm going to coat the areas that I've stamped. Now, this sticky embossing powder can be a little bit tricky, but the trick is that you want to heat it really fast and stop heating it once you've melted it. And then you don't want to do what I just did there. I think my husband came in and he was talking to me and I dumped that embossing powder everywhere. And so in order to create a more kind of splotchy look or more dry brush effect, I went ahead and tried to use my brush to wipe away some of that on the more solid end. That didn't work, so I recoated it, and then I used a smaller brush to kind of knock away some of the powder. And then once I kind of think that I've achieved the look that I'm going for, you can see this is the smaller brush. I'm kind of tapping it in there, kind of swiping. Once I get this kind of embossing powder where I think it's going to give me the effect that I want, I'm going to go ahead and heat it. Now, like I said before, heat it until it melts and then stop, because you're going to get the best results that way. This embossing powder is not like any other embossing powder. It melts super quickly and you're going to get that effect right away. But if you overheat it, you're going to lose your stick. Now, you could also use Wow's bonding powder. It is the same sort of thing. It works in the same way. I made sure my heat tool was good and heated, and then you can see how quickly this is melting. It's going to change from white to clear, and then you want to stop. And then I'm going to add my foil on top once again. I'm going to press it onto that area where the sticky embossing powder is, and then I'm going to run it through my die cut machine again just to create a lot of pressure on that and really press that foil down into the adhesive that I've created there. And then I am going to go ahead and pull away the foil, revealing the end result. So here we go. Trial and error here. I'm going to just rub that in. I'm like, maybe I got it. And this gave me a better result, but there were still some areas, you can see it off to the right there, where I really just thought it was too solid. It wasn't kind of dry brushy enough. I don't know. You guys, I played with this for a long time one day, and I think my husband thought I was crazy, but I was bound and determined to get the effect that I wanted. So now on a piece of scrap paper, I'm going to attempt another technique, and I've inked up that large paint swatch or paint stroke again, and with an uninked smaller paint stroke, I stamped on top of that. So I kind of removed a little bit of that Versamark ink from that by pressing the other stamp to it. And then I'm going to press this scrap piece of foil. I already used it on another piece, but like I said, this was an experiment. So I'm going to press that on there. I'm not going to run it through my die cut machine. I'm just going to use my bone folder to kind of really press it in. And then I removed that. And this was definitely more of the effect that I was going for. So I decided, let's go ahead and try this again. Now I did have to restamp my entire panel there because I had already ruined, I don't know, 4 or 5 at this point, but I got really good at stamping those paint strokes across the front of my card front. I inked up the end portion of that larger paint stroke with my Versamark ink, and then I stamped a clean, dry stamp onto the end of that to remove a little bit of the ink, and then stamped it over the paint stroke that was stamped on my card front. I'm going to show you this a few times. So I'm barely inking up the end, and you can tell from the way I'm inking there, I'm not pushing really firmly to transfer a ton of ink to that stamp there. And then once again, I'm going to take my clean and dry smaller paint stroke. I'm going to kiss it onto the other stamp. So this is what we call a kissing technique. And it's, of course, you know, photopolymer to photopolymer, going to stick to the other one. I just peeled it off, no big deal, and then stamped it over the next paint stroke. So once again, I'm just going to keep showing this to you so you can kind of get a feel for what I did to create this look. And like I said, I went through a lot of different kind of trial and error techniques, and this is what I found worked the best for the result I was looking for. If you're wanting a more solid effect, you could definitely achieve that by one of the other techniques that I've showed you in this video. So I'm just going to continue working my way down, inking and kissing and inking and kissing and stamping all the way down this rainbow. And then for whatever reason, my camera was off. So I applied my Ranger sticky embossing powder. I heat set it. I applied my foil by running it through my die cut machine just to apply pressure to that foil. And then I removed the foil. And I got a pretty good result here, but I wanted this to look a little more kind of dry brushy. I don't know, you guys. I wanted it to look a little more spotty. So I'm taking this really firm tonic blending brush and I'm going over the ends of those. And that really kind of removed pieces of it, but it also kind of made it a little more antique-y, a little more realistic as far as that dry brush stroke effect goes. So if you wanted to leave it like it was before, you could skip this part, but this bristle on this brush has a really kind of firm, almost woolly, I don't know, texture. So it kind of really added to that kind of dry brushed, kind of beat up effect. I don't know. It's what I wanted. I got what I wanted in the end. And that's all that matters, right? I got what I wanted. So I took that brush also to the piece that I created on the Nina Solar White, and I die cut this Brushstroke Hello Sentiment from the Essentials by Ellen line out of that, so that I have that little bit of foiling along the bottom of my sentiment as well. And that little sub-sentiment that I stamped and embossed there on some black cardstock, that is from the Totally Random Sayings stamp set as well. So I adhered these all together. I put it onto my card front using some foam adhesive, and now I decided maybe I should have cut that at an angle. So I'm going to do that. It's much easier if you do this before you put it on your card, but I don't always think things out, so I go with it, you know? I'm going to finish off this card by adding some sparkling clear sequins all over the front. And I actually place my sequins and then adhere them. So you'll see me place them where I want them and then kind of tip them up, add my adhesive behind them, and then press them into that adhesive. That's just what I find works for me. And you can see I have my card front all finished out here. Now, I ended up trimming this down, I don't know, about a quarter or maybe 3/8 of an inch so that I could have a strip of black and white pattern paper running down my card base. So you can see I've applied it to the left-hand side of my card base there. And then I'm putting some foam adhesive all along the front of this card base. And I am going to attach my card front using that foam adhesive. And I'll just kind of level it out on my work surface and push it all together to make sure I get it adhered onto the card base straight. And that finishes off my gold foiled dry brush technique card for today. Of course, if you wanted to recreate this, you wouldn't have to go through all of the trial and error that I did to create it. So I hope this was helpful to you. So here's a look at the card that I created, along with a couple others that I created using some of the other new products from the Essentials by Ellen November 2017 release. If you want to see more about those, go ahead and head on over to my blog. This video is a part of a blog hop celebrating the new November 2017 release from Essentials by Ellen. So be sure you head on over to my blog for more information about that as well. There is tons of inspiration along this hop, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. As always, I will have links to the featured products in the description at YouTube, and I'll have a complete list of products used in this project over at my blog. Thanks for stopping by today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.